Let's get peppy. This is Ep114, and I am Chaz Licciardello from Planet America, which began just before we recorded this. I've come directly from the record, and that is why I'm wearing makeup. Now you can see how bad people look with TV makeup when they're not on TV. And I've come direct from the record. I'm going to try to not overlap with what we talked about on the show. So if you're interested in stuff we didn't talk about, then maybe watch the show, which is online as well. But if not, this is PEP, where we talk about all the stuff that was too nerdy for Planet America. And you are Dr. Dave Smith.
I am Dr. David Smith from the United States Study Centre at the University of Sydney. However, I am not speaking for either the United States Study Centre or the University of Sydney. What you are getting is my purely personal opinion.
Good to get that settled nice and early, as always. You're not here next week. I think
I'm not here next week.
We've got Bill Wyman. So these are Dave's opinions for the next 2 weeks.
That's right.
We've got a lot to cram in there,
yes,
Dave.
fill up now.
Oh, I'm supping on Dave. Let's start by supping on Dave's opinion about the indictment. Last PEP was the no indictment mentioned episode because we had no idea. We knew it had dropped. We had no idea what was in it. Now we know. So, Dave, take us away.
Yeah, I'm still reeling from that little Silence of the Lambs sound effect that you just threw in there. But, look, I've got some advice for Trump's lawyers.
Wow.
Now,
we're off the bat.
Yeah. Now, I'll just preface this with I don't have any legal qualifications.
Neither do they.
Yeah. I was going to say I'm not entirely sure that they do either. But I reckon they should lean on the Sixth Amendment.
And what's the Sixth Amendment?
So the Sixth Amendment specifies the rights of defendants in criminal trials. And among other things, one of the things it basically guarantees is the right for the accused to know the nature of the charges and the evidence against them.
Okay.
That indictment is 45 pages long. Oh. There is no way Trump is ever going to read that. Like, if the Department of Justice offered him a deal, which is, we will dismiss these charges if you just read the indictment, he wouldn't do it.
Now, some might say that is an insulting bit of advice for Trump, suggesting that he's too dumb to be able to read an indictment.
That is honestly better than some of the other stuff that they're suggesting at the moment.
I was going to say, the actual defense, that we were going to talk a lot about this, that we expect them to run on, is that despite the fact that every single person in a position of power or authority or knowledge expressed some really obvious facts about the election, Donald Trump was either too stupid or too committed to his delusion to believe them.
That is
their
actual
actual defense.
Yeah.
So that defense is no less insulting than what you just said.
Absolutely not.
Yes.
Yeah.
But let's get into a little bit more detail. We're going to talk about this at length because I think you and I actually have slightly different views on something.
I think we do,
as we often do. That's what makes this podcast so peppy.
Yes.
It's a weird indictment in that Trump is charged with 4 counts. Right? There's conspiracy to defraud the United States. Oh, sorry, no. Sorry, I'm going to get them into a second. There it is actually there. To defraud the United States, to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. All 4 of those counts kind of deal with the same topic areas. It's all about messing with.
That's because there is no conspiracy to fuck with an election charge available.
Yeah. But and because of that, he basically, Jack Smith basically in the first count goes through all the facts, and then for the next 3 counts goes, and for them as well. They're all exactly the same facts, exactly the same situation, because they overlap so much. And so he sort of focuses on these conspiracies that were just described, right?
Yes.
In particular, he cites 3 broad conspiracies.
Yes.
A conspiracy to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit.
Yes.
A conspiracy to corruptly obstruct and impede an official proceeding of the U.S. government.
Yes.
And a conspiracy against the right to vote and to have one's vote counted. Now, the first 2 have one obvious thing in common, which is fraud.
Yes.
Which is something that a lot of people are talking about. The third one, not necessarily. Like, it's just about stopping a conspiracy against the right to vote and to have one's vote counted.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, but there's a lot of talk about fraud, and in particular about, there's the other thing, there's a lot of talk about free speech. What's free speech? What's criminalizing free speech, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to just get the freedom of speech thing out of the way
real
early.
Yep.
Which is, yes, there's freedom of speech, but there's not a freedom to trick people.
No.
If you speak by conning and then con someone, no one goes, well, you got freedom of speech to con that person.
Yeah.
Which is, once again, comes to the fraudulent element.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between freedom of speech and something that could be illegal is if you are intentionally misleading and deceiving people.
Yeah.
Then it's not freedom of speech.
And another thing to keep in mind is Trump, in his position of power, a lot of the time he wasn't just expressing an opinion, he was giving orders.
Yeah.
He was giving instructions.
Yes.
It's not like he was, just protesting as it's being framed by his allies. He was trying to do things with words. I recommend J.L. Austin's How to Do Things with Words if you want to find out more about this fascinating topic. But he was giving orders.
This is a grey area, though, because obviously Donald Trump, as president, has a level of authority.
Yes.
So when he expresses an opinion, someone could take that as an order.
Yes.
Like him saying to Mike Pence, you should do this thing.
Yes.
Like you should throw January 6th.
Yeah.
Like he would say that wasn't an order. That was me saying what I think he should do.
Yes.
That's my opinion. Whereas you might say, well, that's an order.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there is a grey area there which needs to be hashed out in court.
Yes.
That's why you have a jury.
Yeah.
Right. But I just want to just broadly just say this whole, if he tweets something or he says something in a speech, that can't be a crime because that's just freedom of speech.
No.
That's not true.
Even under the American understanding of freedom of speech, which is probably the broadest in the world, that has limits.
Yeah, exactly. But having said that, when we talk about the fraud thing, and a lot of people are saying, and I know that this is an area where you and I disagree.
Yes.
A lot of people are saying that because fraud is such a key part of this indictment, that if Trump can convince one juror that he believed that he won the 2020 election, genuinely he believed that.
Yes.
And he was in good faith trying to prevent the election from being stolen with fraudulent votes, then that's the ball game. He's not guilty. That's what Trump's defense is saying, for sure.
Yeah, no, I know.
And that's what a lot of legal writers are saying, and that is, I'm not sure I 100% agree with that, but I'm pretty close to that. I know that you have a different view. Do you want to talk through that?
I do have a different view, which is whether the overall big picture is that Trump believed that the election was stolen, I think is actually irrelevant. What this is about a lot of individual crimes where he was trying to do individually fraudulent things. What is relevant is not that he believed that the election had been stolen from him. What is relevant is that he did know, unquestionably, that everyone in a position of authority had deemed that Biden had won the election. And because they had the authority, they were the law, it was illegal for him to do things like trying to assemble fake slates of voters in order to transmit fake votes to Congress in order to create what one of his own lawyers called a fake controversy.
Yeah.
Okay. He knew that the law had come down against him. He knew that elected officials in positions of authority in every one of these states in question had come down against him. He knew that not even Republican speakers of state houses were planning to side with him on this, right? He knew that in the eyes of everybody that counted, the election had gone to Joe Biden. The election result had been decided. The results had been certified. The results were going to be transmitted. He definitely knew all of those things because he was repeatedly told those and he was looking for ways to circumvent those. He definitely would have known that what he was doing was illegal, even if he thought that it was towards some kind of greater right. I mean, I suppose an analogy would be you're not allowed to commit a crime in order to rectify another crime, right? That's a basic principle of criminal law. Someone steals your car, you're not allowed to then go and carjack it back.
Yes.
And that's not a perfect analogy, but the point is that what they're going to push is that Trump believed in this greater truth of the stolen election and that what he was trying to do was rectify that. That doesn't matter. What he was doing was committing a bunch of sort of little criminal acts that he would have known were criminal because of the fact that they went against what the law had actually determined was the result.
Yeah, so you're saying it doesn't matter what he thinks is the greater truth.
Is the true election outcome. The fact was he knew what the illegal election outcome was.
Is he aware that the law has spoken? And he is aware that the law has spoken.
He absolutely was.
And if he is aware that the law has spoken, then he needs to follow it. Otherwise, he's breaking the law.
Absolutely.
I understand at that point. I suppose where my point of view on this is that I also don't think it matters whether he, as a whole, thought that the election was stolen or not. What I think, because there's an argument you could make that many have made.
Yes.
That the election was stolen in a softer way through laws that were passed under COVID to change voting methods and so forth. Like there are Republicans who argue that allowing so much early voting and so much voting from home and so much absentee voting and all these other things advantage the Democrats, which they took advantage, and that's why they won in a close election. Now, that's hard to prove, but someone believing that is very different from someone doing the stuff that Trump did, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's relevant whether he thinks the whole election was stolen. What I think is relevant, my personal feeling, is you need to look at each of his actions. I think the actions count.
Yes.
And then you look at each of his actions, and words can be actions,
yes,
by the way.
Absolutely.
You need to look at each of his actions and go, when he performed the action, did he think he was doing the right thing or not? Did he think was he committing fraud in that action?
But it's not whether he thought he was doing the right thing. It's whether he thought he was doing something legal or not, surely.
Sure. Well, like I said, it gets grey at times, which we're going to go into, right? Because I'm going to go into some individual examples now.
Okay.
Right? I should say, by the way, Trump's lawyer has dived right in on the he believed it angle.
Yes.
They're saying I would like them to try to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump believed that these allegations were false. Yeah, so that's
he said that on Fox. I almost think he said that on Fox News just straight off the bat in order to appease the Fox News audience straight away. Like, there is no chance that we're going to concede any kind of concession to the fantasy that you all have about the stolen election. I don't think that's even a serious legal argument.
We will see. I should also say that a lot of people have made the point that you can only take that argument so far. Like, a thief can't say, "I truly believe I own your laptop, so I can just take it."
Yes,
that clearly can only be taken so far.
Just on a side note, I'm not a lawyer. I don't really know anything about the law, but is it a sensible thing for lawyers to be mouthing off on Fox News? Is that what actual lawyers do? I think of all the legal cases on earth, I think this one is the most political of legal cases. So it makes sense. Shouldn't he have at least some lawyers somewhere who are, experienced in criminal cases? And
I think he chose not to pay them a long time ago. And they're gone.
Because he seems to have campaign spokesmen rather than lawyers.
Yeah.
He's got people who talk in his house style. And
I was gonna say also one other thing with the fraud thing. Like, if they can show fraud, I think this case becomes easier at the very least.
Yes.
And I think it's also important and ideal that they can show fraud.
Yeah.
Because something that people have raised it's not a legal argument, but a political argument is go, okay, well, hang on. Are we starting to criminalize politics here? Where, when people the example which we're going to go into is the example I talked about last time, the Hawaii 1960 fake electors thing. We talked about the last podcast of David. If you can go back and have a listen, where they genuinely didn't know who who was going to win, and they got two competing slates of electors just in case either way. Okay, and just go, when you make moves because you believe something or other with politics. There's sometimes a grey line between, you don't want people going back and second guessing political decisions. But I think fraud is the bright line there.
Yes.
There is a bright line. You go, well, hang on. If you are lying to people intentionally and deceiving them, that's not inverted commas politics.
No.
Certainly not inverted commas politics that we can defend. And if you make that illegal, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I think that's an okay society.
Yes.
But anyway, okay, so let's go into the details here. One more defense that they used is that they've flagged is that he was trusting John Eastman and Rudy Giuliani.
Yes, I
which is-
saw this one.
Yeah, which is an interesting one to go. I mean, we can only take that so far as well, I would have thought.
I would have thought so. Yeah.
But anyway. Okay, so now the way they try and prove fraud in this indictment is generally that they assume when someone tells Trump that he's wrong, that he believes them, and from then on, if he contradicts them, he's lying. That's what they and the quote from paragraph 7, I'm going to do a lot of paragraphs here. Paragraph 7, the defendant was notified repeatedly that his claims were untrue, often by people on whom he relied for candid advice on important matters and who were best positioned to know the facts, and he deliberately disregard the truth, they assert, right? And he cites the vice president, DOJ leaders, the director of national intelligence, cybersecurity people, White House teams. It goes on, right? Okay. He uses the phrase knowingly false to describe Trump's assertions 33 times. Right, so
I did notice that when I read it. Yes.
Yeah, and to me, pretty much every single time he uses the phrase knowingly false, he hasn't demonstrated it. He's asserted it. Now, maybe he can make the argument in court. Yeah. Maybe he has evidence that's not in the indictment. Right? But at least on the page, there wasn't a demonstration that Trump knew he was saying something false, that he just didn't disbelieve. Now, I know you think that doesn't matter, but just for the purposes of the fraud thing.
Yeah,
right?
okay. Yep.
All right. Okay, so let's start. I want to talk broad, and then I want to talk particulars. Let's start broad. This whole the facts are in sections.
Yeah.
The first section is Trump trying to get state officials to alter legitimate results.
Yes.
And that's got a lot of knowingly false there. It's got a lot of people saying to Trump, "You lost," and him going, "I didn't lose." Just over and over and over and over again. Okay, so to me, that's a less convincing part. That might be more convincing to you.
I
that
found
section.
it very convincing.
Yeah, for the reasons we've already established.
Yeah,
that's fine. Okay. The second section is the fake electors section.
Yes.
Getting the fake electors. That's paragraphs 53 to 69, if you're interested. And there is plenty of fraud here.
I imagine every pepper who's listening to this has a printed out copy.
I hope so.
And is following along.
I imagine I've got it memorized.
Yes.
They don't even need me to tell them
That's
what paragraphs.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
There's plenty of fraud here, but what's on the page is Rudy Giuliani and my favourite named defendant, Cheese Bro.
Yes.
Now, they haven't been named yet. They're co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator 5.
Yes.
If you're reading along in the indictment, but we all know that's them.
Yeah.
Cheese Bro. He's going to have his time to shine, that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, and it revolves around 2 memos in particular. There's the Wisconsin memo, which I'll read the quote of. It advocated that because of the ongoing recount in Wisconsin, the defendants' electors there should meet and cast votes on December 14, the date the Electoral Count Act required appointed electors to vote, to preserve the alternative of the defendants' Wisconsin elector slate in the event the defendant ultimately prevailed in the state. That's the Hawaii example.
Yes.
Where we don't know who's going to win.
Yep.
So let's have alternative electors ready just in case.
Yes.
There was a second memo called the December 6th memo, or the fraudulent electors memo.
Yes.
This is the quote. It marked a sharp departure from Cheese Bros' Wisconsin memo, advocating that alternative electors originally conceived of to preserve rights in Wisconsin instead be used in a number of states as fraudulent electors to prevent Biden from receiving the 270 electoral votes necessary to secure the presidency on January 6th. The fraudulent elector memo suggested that the defendants' electors in 6 purportedly contested states, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, should meet and mimic as best as possible the actions of the legitimate Biden electors, and that on January 6th, the vice president should open and count the fraudulent votes, set up a fake controversy that would derail the proper certificate of Biden as president-elect. Okay, now that completely undermines the Hawaii defense.
Yes.
That is just fraud.
Yes.
That is intentionally, when you know you have no chance of success legally, trying to create a fake controversy to derail the proper certificate of Biden as president-elect.
Yes.
That's the quote of Jack Smith, not them.
Yeah.
But presumably he's accurately describing this memo.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So that is a big deal. That memo is basically Giuliani and Cheesebro are all over those memos.
Yes.
Right? So they are in trouble to begin with. But then the Giuliani and Cheesebro intentionally pretend they are enacting the Wisconsin memo, the good one, when they're actually enacting the December 6th memo, the bad one, right? So, paragraph 59. At Giuliani's direction, Cheesebro sent to points of contact in all target states except Wisconsin, and all target states except Wisconsin and New Mexico, a streamlined version of the Wisconsin memo, which did not reveal the intended fraudulent use of the defendants' electors. Okay, so they're actually implementing the December 6th while telling the electors they're doing the Wisconsin one. So they are lying to people to get them to be fake electors, right?
Yep.
That is clearly, quote, intending to obstruct and impede the January 6th congressional proceeding, which is the second count.
Yes.
Okay, then in paragraph 60, Giuliani suggests launching fake lawsuits to convince the state fake electors to go through with it, thinking that they're responding to potential lawsuits, which were made up.
Yes.
That's fraud.
It is.
Okay. Paragraph 62, a new memo from Cheesebro to Giuliani confirms that they've intended to use the electors as per the December 6th memo, even though they're pretending it's per the Wisconsin memo. Fraud. Paragraph 56, Eastman also falsely represents the RNC chairwoman, that's Ronna McDaniel, that the fake electors would only be used if ongoing litigation in one of the states changed the results in Trump's favor.
Yes.
That's a lie. That's fraud. Okay, and then the big one, paragraph 61, when the defendants' electors expressed concern about signing certificates representing themselves as legitimate electors, when they were worried about it, Rudy Giuliani falsely assured them that the certificates would be used only if the defendants succeeded in litigation. That's fraud. Giuliani is going to jail.
Good.
And so is Cheesebro.
Yes.
Right? There's no way, if they can prove what is written there, then
they might not charge them, though.
Well, if they flip.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So to that, I'm just saying the facts and if they can prove those facts that they say they can, then that is, to me, an absolute slam dunk case. And Trump's not mentioned there, though.
Yeah. Look, I just want to note, one of my favourite parts of a lot of my favourite American sitcoms has always been the character of the dodgy lawyer, like Lionel Hutz in The Simpsons,
yes.
Henry Winkler's character in Arrested Development.
Yep.
But nobody has ever come up with anyone as good as Rudy Giuliani.
We haven't even mentioned his sexual assault case.
Like,
which at some point in time we're going to mention.
Yeah. That is just beyond the capability of like the 100 greatest comedy writers in the world to come up with Rudy Giuliani.
He's pretty special.
Yeah.
Like there's such a bumbling nature to him.
Yeah.
Trump has brought us a lot of bumblers.
Yeah.
God bless
the combination, the bumbling malevolence.
Yes. Okay, so that's section 2. But like I said, maybe there's evidence that we don't know that Trump's right across this and ordering it and all the rest of it. But you can so see Trump going, I had nothing to do with that. I mean, I don't know if that's going to work.
No.
But Trump's not mentioned in the facts. It's just Giuliani and Cheesebro. So I just want to put that out there. Okay, then the next section is Trump gets the Justice Department to use deceit to get states to replace Biden's electors with his. That's the letter from the DOJ.
Yeah. Now, can I ask about this? Because when I read that, I don't think I'd seen that before.
That was in the January 6th.
Oh, that wasn't in January.
It was, yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just wasn't paying enough attention to what was going on there. But pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty
bad stuff.
Pretty bad. Yeah, Jeffrey Clark essentially, so Game of Thrones style.
Yeah.
Sort of, kept on lying to his superiors. And that he said he wasn't meeting Donald Trump.
Yes.
And he kept on meeting Donald Trump behind their back to plot against them so he could become the Attorney General himself.
Yes.
And the only grounds in which he wouldn't do that, and Trump went along with it, and the only grounds in which he wouldn't take the Attorney Generalship from them would be if they signed this form that essentially said that the Justice Department had identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states, which they had not. And he knew they had not. And Donald Trump knew they had not.
Exactly.
Because Donald Trump himself bitched about them in a meeting a couple of days later after that form saying they'd done nothing.
Yes.
So we know for a fact that Trump knew that they had not identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states. So Jeffrey Clark wrote that thing. He's fraudulent.
Yep.
Donald Trump, to the extent he had something to do with it, he is also fraudulent.
Yes.
Not only, and they also said that 2 valid slates of electors had gathered at the proper location on December 14 to where they sent that memo, where they hadn't at that particular location, and they knew that.
Yes.
That was their memo that was going to be fake.
Yes.
Right? So that is fraud as well from Jeffrey Clark,
Yes.
potentially Trump. Now, I should say, announcing a fake investigation and pretending it's real
Yes.
is classic Trump.
Oh, so much.
So like that was the Ukraine thing, remember?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't care if you investigate Biden, just say you're
Yes.
investigating
He's
Biden.
got this obsession with announcing investigations.
Yeah. So
Yes.
so if Trump argues he had nothing to do with it and it was just Jeffrey Clark,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to find that extremely hard to believe.
Yes.
I think that Smith has a fair chance of making the case that Trump must have been across that.
Yep.
But that he's gonna have to prove that.
Yeah.
But if he can prove it, it's fraud because Trump knows that they're lies.
Yeah.
Okay.
What amazed me reading all this is just the number of easily detected childish ruses
Bumbling. It's
that
the
were
bumblers.
used. Like, how would they not think that this stuff would get found out?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, next section, Trump's attempt to enlist the vice president to fraudulently alter election results.
Yes.
And the January 6th riot ties into that because it was just part of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Pressuring Pence, right?
Yes.
Okay, paragraph 89. Eastman's memo Eastman sends a memo that suggests the VP announce that because of the ongoing disputes in the 7 states, there are no electors that can be deemed validly appointed in those states. Okay, he knows that's not true. Once again, they know that that's not true. So that is fraud. Eastman proposed steps that he acknowledged violated the Electoral Count Act. He acknowledged he was breaking the law.
Yep.
That's corrupt.
Yep.
Advocating that in the end, quote, Pence then gavels President Trump as re-elected.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty cut and dry. Eastman.
Yes.
Cut and dry for Eastman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He is actually the one that I most want to go to jail.
You're the one. He's the one you hate the most.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think he's the one who abused his position of power the most.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
for sure. Oh, Trump did, but
And he's also the one who was the source of a massive controversy in the American Political Science Association.
Yeah. And the fact that he had previously 2 months earlier said the direct opposite to what he said then
Yes. Yeah.
is particularly. I mean that's probably not relevant
Yeah.
to the law.
Yes.
But morally, it's very culpable.
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
The paragraph 90, Trump lies to Pence. This is Trump lying to Pence. I'm saying it's
Yes.
lying. I'm saying the proof is there.
Yeah.
When he says on December 29, the Justice Department, on December 29, he tells Pence the Justice Department was finding major infractions.
Yes.
He knows that wasn't the case.
Yes.
2 days later, he was having to go at them for doing nothing.
Yes.
That's a lie.
Yeah.
So he's trying to get Pence to do something that's against the law by deceptive means.
Yes.
And that, by the way, was from Pence's notes. We didn't see that in the January 6th committee. That was from Pence's notes.
No, we didn't, yeah.
So Pence may end up proving to be a critical person
Oh,
in this prosecution.
Living the dream. He'll finally get to be a critical person.
Yes, yeah. And then there's some lies from Trump's tweets. It's a bit grey here for me on what is crime, what is speech.
What is Twitter?
Yeah, well,
What
yeah.
is X?
What is X?
Yeah,
What
okay.
is X?
Yeah, right. So some Trump X's. What did they have?
Okay, so he tweeted out that the vice president and I are in total agreement that the vice president has the power to act. Well, that's not true. He knows that's not true.
absolutely not true.
That one is unambiguous. He knows that's not true.
Yeah.
And that is
He's perpetrating a fraud against Twitter.
yes,
Against X.
the ultimate crime,
Yes.
a crime against X. Paragraph 100, he tweets out, if Vice President Pence comes through for us, we'll win the presidency. Many states want to decertify the mistake they made in certifying incorrect and even fraudulent numbers in a process not approved by their state legislatures. He doesn't know that is true, and I think he knows that's not true.
He absolutely knows
So
that's
I think that's one of the ones where I think
that's not
are we
true.
100% sure he knows that's not true? I think we are.
By the way, we should at some point talk about the fact that the Supreme Court just blew up the entire theory that state legislatures get to decide election results.
I have Supreme Court in our running order. I would
Yes.
like to. I would
Excellent.
Like to talk about it, yes.
Let's get to that.
We'll
yes.
get to that.
Yep.
Anyway, and then finally, in his January 6th speech, he said, states want to re-vote. The states got defrauded. They were given false information. They voted on it. Now they want to rectify it. They want it back. He knows that's false. So these are things where, that's Trump saying that. So that section, there are bits and pieces. Can you use that to hang Trump on? Maybe. But that's all I found in those sections where I thought, okay, that's proof of, that's proof in the facts of fraud. Do you have anything to say about any of that stuff before I go into a couple of other isolated examples?
No.
Okay. Because I went through the entire indictment looking for any examples of fraud that were demonstrated, right? Rather than asserted. Okay, so the one everyone's talking about is the Sidney Powell one.
Yes.
Where I'll read the paragraph. It's paragraph 12.
She's number 3.
She's number 3. Paragraph 12. Powell filed a lawsuit, Conspirator 3, filed a lawsuit against the governor of Georgia, falsely alleging massive election fraud accomplished through the voting machine company's election software and hardware. Before the lawsuit was even filed, the defendant retweeted a post promoting it. Defendant did this despite the fact that when he had discussed co-conspirator 3's far-fetched public claims regarding the voting machine company in private with advisors, he had conceded that they were unsupported and the co-conspirator 3 sounded crazy. So he didn't believe her. But that was November 25.
Yeah.
So Trump could argue, I changed my mind. He could.
I wonder if they'll actually argue that Trump can absolutely believe that something is crazy and unsupported, but still think
believe
true.
it. Maybe.
I mean, if we're going to take this argument to its logical conclusions.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. The second most cited example involved when Pence said that there was no constitutional basis for the authority of throwing January 6th and it was improper. Trump responded by saying, "You're too honest." People say that proves Trump is admitting to lying. Now, I don't actually think that's true. I think that's kind of a figure of speech.
Actually, I hate to agree with you here, but that's a broad enough kind of character claim that, I don't think. By the way, I just want to mention with Pence that he often gets presented as this kind of heroic figure in all of this because he followed the law in the end. I do want to point out that he actually went and got legal advice about whether he should follow the law. Yeah. Like he personally went through a bit of mental torture about whether he should do something obviously and completely criminal or not.
Yeah, look,
I'm not buying into Pence's heroism.
I'm not saying Pence is a hero.
Yeah,
I'm saying Pence was sacrificing his potential political career for it. He knew he was doing that, but it wouldn't have been much of a political career if they'd gotten away with it. But having said that, I'm not saying he's a hero. No, but what I am saying is I don't think it's unreasonable when you're told point blank by someone like Eastman,
yes,
this is the law. And you think it smells funny that you go and ask another lawyer for at least the reasons why it's not the law. If
John Eastman told me your name is David Smith, I would start to doubt that.
That's fair. Anyway, but that one I'm not so keen on, even though they talk about it. In the January 6th committee, there was a quote where Trump apparently said, "I don't want people to know we lost."
I remember that one.
If they can pull that one out, that sounds to me more solid ground.
Yes, yeah.
But anyway, he didn't mention that in the indictment. I found a few more examples of deception. I'll just say quickly. Paragraph 15. Trump files a legal filing he knows is untrue. Yes. The defendant signed a verification affirming false election fraud allegations made on his behalf in a lawsuit filed in his name against the Georgia governor. In advance of the filing, Eastman, who was advising the defendant on the lawsuit, acknowledged in an email that he and the defendant had since signing a previous verification, quote, been made aware that some of the allegations and evidence proffered by the experts has been inaccurate, and that signing a new affirmation with that knowledge and incorporation by reference would not be accurate. The defendant and Eastman caused the defendant's signed verification to be filed nonetheless. So he knew it. He knew in that case. So there's no suggestion he didn't believe Eastman.
No.
Right? So that is fraud. Yep. That's a fraudulent application. Paragraph 32. Trump tweets the day after talking to Raffensperger.
Yes.
Raffensperger, he said, was unwilling or unable to answer questions such as the ballots under table scam, ballot destruction, out-of-state voters, dead voters, and more. He has no clue. That was the day after he had a lengthy conversation with Raffensperger. Raffensperger dealt with every one of them.
Yes.
Now, Trump might not have believed him.
No.
Trump might not have agreed with him. But to say that he was unwilling or unable to answer questions.
No.
That is clearly not true. And he knew it.
Absolutely. Yes.
Unless he had amnesia, he knew it. So that is deceptive.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I have now gone through every single example, the entire indictment that I can find of fraud.
That's still quite a lot.
But it's a lot for other people. Yeah. Eastman, Giuliani, Cheesebro, all I think are gone. But Trump, I'm not 100% from that on fraud. Now, I know your point is you might not need that.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't. I'm not a lawyer. Well,
you are actually a lawyer.
No, I've got a law degree.
Right.
I didn't do the qualification actually.
Right.
Actually, a practicing solicitor.
Yeah.
But having said that, I'm closer to a lawyer than you, but I'm not as close as a lawyer as all the clowns who are on TV at the moment. So I don't know. But anyway, Do you have anything else to say about the facts and all that kind of stuff?
No.
No. Okay. There've been a couple of surprising moments I just want to note. There's a bit where Jeffrey Clark turned into Joffrey from Game of Thrones. He really was very Game of Thrones,
Yes,
Jeffrey Clark.
yeah.
This is paragraph 81.
Yeah.
The Deputy White House counsel reiterated to Clark that there had not been outcome determinative fraud in the election, and if the defendant remained in the office nonetheless, there would be riots in every major city in the United States. Clark responded,
Oh, yes.
well, that's why there's an Insurrection Act.
That's right.
Now, just be clear to everyone at home, Insurrection Act allows you to deploy the armed forces against the citizens.
Yes.
So literally even before the plot began, this is when you're on your best behavior.
Yes.
And everyone is all smiles and flowers and everything will be wonderful. Right. Even then they're talking, the guy who's planning to be the Attorney General is declaring martial law is about to come true. That's when it's good.
Yes.
That's before anything starts. You know, in the last podcast of Melina, we were talking about why I think Trump is a much bigger threat than DeSantis. That's why.
Yes.
Like that kind of thing. That's
Yes.
where we're starting from.
Yeah.
From the beginnings of potential martial law being thrown around. Like that is that's not a good option. But that was a surprising part of the indictment, I thought. Trump's response is nice and measured. The lawlessness of these persecutions of President Trump and his supporters is reminiscent of Nazi Germany in the 1930s, the former Soviet Union, and other authoritarian dictatorial regimes. President Trump has always followed the law and Constitution with advice from many highly accomplished attorneys. Do you remember in 2022 when Donald Trump wrote how a massive fraud of this type of magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution?
He did.
So I don't think he was following the Constitution then when he called for the overthrowing of the Constitution. But anyway, apart from that, I was astonished he didn't start off immediately on the judge. He didn't mention the judge.
No.
Like she's an Obama appointee, Chutkin. She's an Obama and Gillibrand donor.
Yes.
She's the only federal judge in Washington, D.C. who's sentenced January 6th defendants to longer sentences than the government requested.
Yep.
She's already ruled against Trump.
Yes.
She ruled against Trump last year when he tried to keep his papers secret from the January 6th committee.
Yep.
She, if that's not bad enough, I've left off the worst part.
What's that?
At the law firm she worked at before she was a judge. Do you know who was there?
Who was there?
Hunter Biden!
Oh!
She worked with Hunter Biden! Maybe
And
not
of
actually
course,
person to person, but in the same building as Hunter Biden!
Given that this whole thing is a conspiracy to distract attention from Hunter Biden's nudes, makes sense.
Yeah, anyway, we'll be hearing a lot about that. Get ready for that. The other surprising thing for me is that, like, Pence, what's happening to Pence? He's growing some balls.
He has.
Like the quote the other day. I mean, he started off with the quote.
Well, he's realised now that this is his thing.
Yeah.
He's non-fraud guy.
He still doesn't qualify for the debate. He's got to make this his thing. He's got nothing else. The quote, I couldn't believe it. Let's be clear on this point. It wasn't just that he asked for a pause. He's talking about Trump asking him for a pause on January 6th. The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives. Literally chaos would have ensued. Go, well, that's pretty strong language.
He's now one of the 5 Republicans hunting for the 5% of Republicans who are actively anti-Trump.
You can see he's trying to see if he can get a higher than 55% unfavorables that Chris Christie has amongst Republicans. Anyway. Do you have anything else to say about this indictment or trial or anything to do with it?
Not really, no.
I think we've covered it pretty well.
Yeah, I think we've covered it pretty well.
All I would say is that in terms of when it's going to be,
yes.
The statistics I saw as of December 2022, the median time for a criminal felony case to be finished in the U.S. District Court in Washington, where this is, 18 months.
Right.
Now, so you can put that right next to the documents case, which also they might be lucky to get in the time. They're going to try and get it earlier.
Yes.
Obviously. That doesn't, whatever date you hear in the next few days is not necessarily the trial date, because there's going to be appeals, there's going to be motions, all the rest of it. I genuinely think they're going to have to choose between this and the documents case before to be completed before the election.
It's got to be this.
Yeah, well, this is the question. I mean, my personal feeling is that they're on stronger legal ground with the documents case, but in terms of the gravity of the charge, it's very hard to ignore this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the documents case, they've definitely got him. But one consequence of this, I think regardless of when the trial happens or even what the outcome of it is that this makes the relitigation of 2020 a central issue in the 2024 election campaign.
It does.
Because Trump has telegraphed that his legal strategy is to be vehement about the fact that he still believes that the election was stolen from him, which is what he has wanted to talk about all the time anyway, despite the fact that nearly every ally tells him he needs to talk about different things. So this basically guarantees that 2020 is the major issue, or at least is one of the major issues of the 2024 election. Now, to put it mildly, if you're a Republican strategist, this would not be your dream scenario.
No.
Right, because this is ground that has really cost the Republicans before, as we saw in 2022, where this slate of secretaries of state candidates and gubernatorial candidates running for very winnable positions, but all running on this platform of we're going to hand the election to Trump, they all lost.
Yeah. And remember, there are 18 House Republicans who are running in seats that Biden won.
Yes.
If this is the topic of the election, every single one of them is going to lose.
Yeah, they will lose the House. Given Biden's approval ratings, you would think that Republicans would want the focus to be on Biden. You'd think they would want it to be a referendum on Biden rather than a referendum on Trump. Even if the economy is improving a bit, it doesn't seem to be improving people's perceptions of Biden. So this is a bit of a nightmare scenario for Republicans, the fact that this issue is going to dominate the election. They basically, what they would have to hope for is that the Trump side of this is more energized than the anti-Trump side. And what we saw last year was that the anti-Trump side does seem to get quite energized when this issue comes back up again. So, yeah, I think that it's from an electoral point of view, Trump may think it's a great thing, but I think it's a bad thing for him.
So what happens, though, if, let's say, they put this one first.
Yeah.
And let's say, there's a lot of let's says in this.
Yes, yeah.
Let's say they put this one first. Let's say they finish the trial in time.
Yeah.
And let's say that I am right about fraud and that it being the critical part. And I am right that they've got Giuliani and Cheesebro and Eastman, but they don't have Trump, and he gets off.
And then he uses that as the vindication. The election was stolen from me.
Yeah,
this has now been endorsed by the legal system.
I mean, do you think that works in his favor?
That's a very interesting point. I don't think that many people's minds would be changed about Trump by that outcome. That would certainly be a better outcome for him than anything else. I don't know. That is possible. But I don't think, as I say, I think it's really about who is this going to motivate rather than is anyone's mind going. Because if he gets convicted, that is not going to change anyone's mind. No. It just might provide some motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I saw a poll the other day, I've got written down somewhere, that 50% of Republicans, or it was even more than 50, it might be 59, feel that Donald Trump shouldn't stop campaigning even if he is convicted of a serious crime.
Yes.
So that's enough to win the primary at the very least.
Yes, absolutely.
It's enough to get a lot of Republican votes.
Yes, yeah. Although that number is worrying for him on another level because his usual Republican support for anything is 80%.
Yeah,
if he's
I know, but that's if convicted of a serious crime.
Yes,
that's pretty extreme.
What that does suggest is that if he was convicted, that might make it almost impossible. Well, I don't know though. I don't know, but that, to lose an election, all you need is to lose a few percent of the population. If there are like just a small percentage of Republicans who decide I was going to vote for him, but I can't vote for him because he's a criminal and it's just embarrassing, then then he might lose. But who knows? Yeah. We are in uncharted territory here. Yeah.
When it comes to polling, all that kind of stuff as well, there's a lot of talk about is this going to make him more popular amongst Republicans because the first indictment did.
Yes.
The first indictment put his Republican support from 45% up to 54%. But I don't think it's going to because 50% of registered voters consider falsifying business records to conceal hush money payments to a porn star to be a serious crime.
Yes.
Whereas 71% say the same about conspiring to overturn the results of a presidential election. I can't believe it's only 71%.
It is a bit worrying that it's only 71%.
But that's YouGov. But anyway, since it's a more serious crime, you'd expect it to not have the same results.
Yes.
I would thought. But we'll find out. I don't want to talk about polling because we've got so many other things to talk about. Let's very quickly have a Stats Nugget. 30% of the American homeless population and 50% of its unsheltered population live in California. That's more than 170,000 people.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that's a bit of a cliche people refer to because they go, oh, California, it's the welfare. They'll come from the welfare. No, they're not. Last month, researchers at UC San Francisco surveyed, this is the largest representative survey of homeless people in more than 25 years. We're talking 3,200 homeless people in California and in-depth interviews with more than 300 of them. It's pretty hard to find 3,200 homeless people to survey. That's a pretty good job. 90% of them lost their last housing in California. They didn't move to California to be homeless. They had homes in California. 75% lost it in the same county where they were experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
So they didn't even go anywhere. They just stayed where they lost their house.
Yeah.
Of the 10% who came from elsewhere, 30% were born in California.
Yes.
So it's only 7% who are people from elsewhere, right?
Yep.
Originally.
Yes.
Most of the others, that's 7%, had either familial or employment ties or had previously lived in California at some point in time.
Yes.
Nearly 90% of the... Okay, so why are they homeless?
Yep.
Nearly 90% of the respondents said it was housing costs, I suppose,
Yes.
affected their ability. But I mean, it makes sense. California property prices are ridiculously high compared to the rest of America.
Absolutely, yep.
So that is why there's so many homeless people in California.
Yes.
More than half of the respondents said that said the housing they could afford was just simply too far from their jobs or medical care or unsafe or unserved by public transportation or too far from their children or families. So housing costs plus location.
Yep.
That might not surprise you, but I thought it was interesting.
Me.
So
Yep.
Stats Nugget. Do you have anything to say about that? Or just...
Not really, other than homelessness is really misunderstood. It should be understood as something that is actually an integral problem with the American economy, and that a lot of people are a lot closer to homelessness than we might realize or even they might realize. And that, housing costs there are lots of different factors that are involved, but housing costs are by far the most important. The other thing is that, homelessness, it is not just the high profile homelessness that people, complain about in places like San Francisco.
Tent cities and stuff.
And Los Angeles. There are a lot of people who are homeless who are not that people who are working jobs and raising children but are homeless. Yeah.
Okay. Now you've put on the agenda Ron DeSantis, which we talked a little bit about with Melina last
You'd be
podcast.
happy that someone's putting him on the agenda.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to kind of butt out of this a bit. I'll let you steer us where you're going, and I might chip in, but I'm going to try not repeat myself from last week.
Yeah.
If you're interested in what I said last week, then listen to the last one with Melina. Go for it, Dave. Ron DeSantis.
So in January this year, the polling average in primaries only showed a 2% gap between Trump and DeSantis.
Yeah.
I don't know if DeSantis ever overtook Trump, but he must have come close.
In Florida, he did.
Especially after the 2022 election, because so many people blamed that on Trump. They've all forgotten about that now, but they blamed it on Trump. Abortion was the other factor, but Trump obviously played a big role in it, and it was the size of the role that he played in that election loss surprised a lot of people. Like I remember Frank Luntz claiming that Trump was issue number 10 or something that people cared. No, actually he was like issue number 2 or 3. So there was this period of clarity where people actually realized in the Republican Party that Trump was a losing bet, and they saw DeSantis as a winning bet. And that's where we actually need to start deconstructing the problems of DeSantis. Okay, so He won that election in Florida, admittedly by a huge margin, in a state where people don't usually win by margins that big. Usually it's much more like the margin that he won by back in 2018, which was 0.5%. But looking at the circumstances of that election, so Republicans did very well across this. Like Marco Rubio did extraordinarily well in that election.
But some would say that was because of DeSantis.
Yeah. Some would also say, though, that it's because of Trump. It's because of what Trump has done to the state. So, he's really prompted this realignment. There are other factors as well. The Florida Republican Party is very strong, has very good Latino outreach. And
the Democrat Party does very badly in Florida these days.
Yeah, and also the party may as well not exist there. See our friend Richard Cook on this.
Yeah.
But another, I think, wrong lesson that was taken from that was that DeSantis's COVID stance would make him nationally popular.
Yes.
That he was this national leader of the anti-Fauci brigade because of what he'd done in Florida. Now, that is just a complete political misreading of the 2022 election because, yes, he did very well. He won by 19 points. Gretchen Whitmer, who took exactly the opposite approach in Michigan, won by 12 points in a state where people also rarely win any election by that much. Now, that year was a real mixed bag. Jared Polis, your favorite Democratic governor, who had a very similar approach to DeSantis, he won Colorado by 16 points?
Yeah.
But Mike DeWine, Republican, who took an even more hardline stance than Gretchen Whitmer on COVID, like Ohio literally had the strictest response in the country, he won by 26 points. So you cannot actually read anything from those gubernatorial results into what is going to be nationally popular on COVID, because it just turns out that basically every governor's approach was popular with their state. Or maybe not every governor, but certainly a lot of high-profile governors' approaches were popular with their state. And this gets back to a bigger problem with governors as political candidates, which is you can be wildly popular as a governor of your state and have zero appeal to the rest of the country. There certainly have been plenty of governors who have made these big popular crossovers. Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton. But,
Larry Hogan?
Yeah, but for every one of them, basically for every Bill Clinton, there are about a billion Larry Hogans. Sarah Palin, Scott Walker, Jeb Bush, whatever. Most governors just don't really have much appeal outside of their home states. And their appeal within their home states is frankly very hard to fathom. So, so from the beginning, the significance of DeSantis's victory was significantly overstated and overrated by Republicans. Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I will acknowledge that in many ways for DeSantis, there are no good options about how to take on Donald Trump. And so, I won't claim he was particularly mistaken in any of his own choices, but nonetheless, we can see where his own choices have gone wrong. First of all, the fact that he left the field to Trump for 6 months after that 2022 election. He did not get into the race at all. He wanted to wait until after the Florida legislative session was finished so he could tout legislative accomplishments. Now, I can see why he did that. Yeah. He didn't want to get dragged down into the fray too early. He also didn't want to suffer the fate of others who have got into races too early and have blown all of their, donor money within the first 4 months and then have nothing left.
And it also seems cynical to the moment you win re-election, just ignore your state and run for president.
Yeah. Although, given what Trump was doing, like declaring immediately afterwards, some people would have forgiven him. Yeah. Donors certainly would have forgiven him. And had he got in then, that was when he had the maximal kind of support, momentum. He had a lot of conservative media behind him at that point, and that was when Trump was at his weakest. So if you are going to do the suicidally risky thing of frontally attacking Trump, that would have been the time to do it. Yeah. Instead, Trump had 6 months to rebuild, reconsolidated, massively assisted by the first indictment of him, which, as you said, just spiked his popularity, and he was pretty much untouchable from that point and has been ever since. Now, in terms of waiting until he had all of these legislative accomplishments. Unfortunately, the Florida legislature also had a really good election for Republicans, because Republicans did very well. And so they ended up with these massive majorities that enabled them to do absolutely crazy things, which DeSantis is now tied to, such as the 6-week abortion ban, one of the strictest in the country. That's after the 2022 election, which gave the clearest indications possible that the majority of Americans do not want bans that strict.
Yeah, and Florida was in a real sweet spot for abortion laws. They had the perfect abortion law to defend from a polling point of view. If you looked at the polls and tried to construct, like, sort of Kevin Rudd style, the perfect poll-tested kind of policy, Florida had it.
Yes.
And they got rid of it for a 6-week abortion ban that no one likes.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying that DeSantis is just a victim of the Florida legislature here, because DeSantis has consciously chosen to run to the right of Trump. Once again, didn't have any good choices in that respect. And you probably say running to the right is a safer strategy from a primary point of view than running to the left.
I think it was his only choice.
But it does undercut the one big argument that he has in his favor, which is his electability. Okay, so this is how he has tried to sell himself from the beginning, and this is when he sounds most convincing, is when he says he doesn't think that Trump can actually win a general election. And most of the time, most of the polls that I have seen do show DeSantis doing better than Trump in the general election. They don't show that it's impossible for Trump to win the general election, but they generally show that DeSantis does better. Maybe not a lot better, but like a couple of points better, usually.
Although, that doesn't mean Republicans agree, because I'll cite the Siena poll that just came out this week. 59 Republicans in the poll said that... actually, that was the wrong one. Yes. 45% Republicans said Trump is definitely the strongest candidate against Biden, and 24% he said he's probably the strongest candidate against Biden.
Right.
So that's 69% saying he's more electable than DeSantis.
Now, when they may be right. Like, I am increasingly thinking that regardless of what the polls say now, the more that people see of DeSantis, the less electable he gets, and more on that in a second. But certainly, the policy positions that he's taken, anyone can see that these are not electable policies. He's even talking about messing with Social Security, but saying, oh, no, not for you old people. Not for you valuable old voters. No, for people in their 30s and 40s, like as if they don't vote at all. And
we've been there. That's what Bush tried in 2006, and it completely exploded in his face. And I thought that one of the main lessons of the Trump presidency was that not even Republican voters like Republican economics. But anyway, so he's put himself on a bit of a suicide mission with, in policy terms, because even if he does prevail over Trump in the primaries, he is now tied to policies that are not only kind of demonstrably unpopular, but they're policies that Trump has spent a long time trashing. So, But another interesting poll from the Siena one was that, on this note, is that Republicans in the poll were asked whether agreeing with a candidate on the issues is more important than defeating the Democrat incumbent. 59% said agreeing with a candidate on the issues is more important than defeating the Democrat incumbent. So, according to them, electability doesn't matter anyway. If you back dud issues, you're worse off. So, anyway, go on.
And then we come to DeSantis's performance on the election trail. It has been woeful. It's hard to actually describe what the political strengths of DeSantis are in a campaigning sense, other than the fact that he's got some very powerful backers. Okay, he does not do large audiences, doesn't do large crowds at all. A lot of presidential candidates who are successful in recent years have done it off the back of their magic with large crowds. Trump, Obama. Not so much Biden, but he was in a very different kind of campaign because of COVID. Also, he's a very different kind of candidate. So he doesn't have the magic with large crowds. He does not have the interpersonal magic, which is another thing that maybe candidates who weren't so good with large crowds nonetheless were really good in these one-on-one situations. So that's Joe Biden. That's, that's Bill Clinton. And And if you don't have those things, well, maybe there's the gravitas of someone like George H.W. Bush, who had all of that governmental experience behind him and always gave the impression of somebody who was this like statesman-like figure. You don't get that from screaming about Disney being woke.
No, you don't.
You just don't. You don't get that by going into the lowest and most trivial fights in American culture. So what we've got is somebody who doesn't have the gravitas, does not have the magic with large crowds, does not have any interpersonal charisma. Every successful presidential candidate has at least one and usually two of those.
Can I throw in a fourth one? Although I will pause at successful presidential candidate, but there is another kind of charisma which I've seen, not necessarily from a successful presidential candidate, which is the Chris Christie kind, which is good in a press conference environment.
Right, yes.
Like Chris Christie is really good off the cuff when he's got 12 reporters in front of him. And he can joust, he can be charming, but he's very quick with a perfectly potted response.
Yes.
Right? He's quite clever and he uses that intelligence well in that respect. I've seen DeSantis do that well. I think he can do that. But the problem is that he doesn't do that. And the reason for that is because way back when, he established as his brand the guy who's an asshole to the media.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
His fans love it.
Yes.
His fans love it. And the problem is his fans are quite vociferous types.
Yes.
And if you let them down, they turn against you hard.
Yes.
Right? And they want him to be this warrior, they want him to be this anti-woke warrior fighting all the time, angry, snarling. And he's been playing up to it. And now he's trapped.
Yes.
Because if he stops doing that, he's going to lose one of the critical areas of support he's got.
Yes.
Right? And so he can't turn against that. And so as a result of that, he snaps, he acts like an asshole in interviews, and he doesn't need to do that. No. He could be doing the Chris Christie thing if he wanted to. He could take them on while at the same time still not being an asshole, but he kind of needs to now. And I think he's screwed because of that, because that leaves him not being able to show charisma, I think, in the one area that he could.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my view. You might disagree on that, but
So, I mean, who knows whether he will ever get to debate Trump?
Oh, sorry. So just before we go on, can I just throw in one more stab at the woke thing before we move on, which I just could not believe?
Yes.
It's from the Siena one, there's a poll as well.
Yeah.
Republicans were asked who they'd prefer in a contest between a candidate who promises to fight corporations that promote woke ideology and another candidate who wants the government to stay out of deciding what corporations should support. The Republicans went the hands-off candidate, 52-38.
Yeah.
So he's barked up the wrong tree there.
He has.
Like he might have this little core group of supporters who love him.
Yeah.
But they're not
These
the majority of Republicans.
These are the people who all pay $8 for their blue tick on X every month.
Yeah.
That's his that's
his constituency.
That's DeSantis' base.
Okay, go on.
At this point. Yeah. I don't know if he's ever going to be on a debate stage with Trump. But if he is, I mean, if we look at the guy, he's basically got the gravitas of Marco Rubio combined with the likability of Ted Cruz. He is a lab-grown creature to be beaten up by Trump in a debate. But I don't know if we're ever actually going to... don't know if we're ever going to see that. So, I don't know whether it's possible for DeSantis to turn it around at this point. I also don't see him giving up. Like he's in pretty deep. By this point, he's burnt through a lot of donor money. And I suppose this is the other thing. How he's run his campaign. So from the outset, he hasn't been using volunteer door knockers. He's been paying people to door knock. And this is one of the reasons why he's already burnt through so much money. So his people have collectively knocked on more than 600,000 doors, a lot of those in Iowa, because he's got this quite understandable strategy of concentrating on the early states. I think that's his only hope. But he's paying door knockers. So he has burnt through a huge amount of cash. He's already laying off staff, scaling back the campaign, which not even Jeb was doing that this early in what would have been 2015. So I think that's actually an objectively bad choice that you can point to.
I want to make a point on that note with the money as well, which hasn't been mentioned by other people. This is a
Chaz original.
Yeah, it's original. That's not me accusing you of saying something that other people have said, but just this one I haven't heard a single other person say. Okay. Which is that I was just trying to find the exact quotes. I can't find them, but I'll do my best to paraphrase.
Yes.
Right at the beginning of his campaign, he said something that endeared me forever to him, despite everything else.
What was that?
Which is he swore off cheating people in donation emails. Like he said, like we're not going to be doing that. We're not going to be doing the fake fund donation matching thing.
Yes,
where we go, we'll match $12 for every $1 that you do, and like it's like sometimes I've seen $25 to one. It's just so ridiculous. Like and we're not going to be lying to you in our emails. We're not going to be hyping things up. Like there's a whole industry that was there before Trump, but Trump's really built up of just scamming your donors. And he swore it off explicitly at the start of his campaign. And at the time I thought to myself, well, that's really good. You don't have to do that because no one else is going to do that.
No.
That's unilateral disarmament there. So good on you. Like at the very least you got some integrity to do that. Right? And I can't help but notice he has no small donors. And I wonder if that's part of the reason.
Wow.
Like I wonder if the entire small donor industry on the Republican side is driven by fraud and driven by...
I can absolutely believe that. Rick Perlman's essay, now more than 10 years old, I think it's from 2012, The Long Con, which I think was in the Baffler, is really worth reading on this. I would absolutely believe that the entire small donor industry is driven by fraud. So we're now at this point where DeSantis is making these increasingly desperate squeaking noises, especially because Trump is dominating the news yet again. And so, you would think in a sane world, if you're running against somebody in a primary and they're getting multiple criminal indictments, you should be able to use that against them. But of course, this is not a sane world. This is the Republican primary. So he has opted to essentially make these statements that are very supportive of Trump while hoping that there's enough of a reminder in those statements that people will realize that he's actually under criminal indictment for stuff that he's probably done. So, so we got him saying that, first of all, I think his first comment in reaction to this latest indictment was, if you're under federal indictment, you should be allowed to move that case away from DC, because that's a swamp, and into your home state, which would be South Florida, where, by the way, he is facing another criminal trial. Then we had, and this was really amazing, or maybe this was the one that came first, actually. He said that, if Trump had drained the swamp properly, he wouldn't be in this situation now with all these people coming after him. Yes. Oh, God. The cringe factor on these, trying to peel off Trump's supporters while being as supportive of Trump as possible, while trying to allude to the fact that he's been engaged in wrongdoing.
But I get the patheticness of it. But you can understand why. I mean, you look at the only candidate who is doing relatively well at the moment, other than Trump, is Ramaswamy, who sucks up relentlessly to Trump.
That is true.
That is
true. But at some point, isn't just your basic human dignity more important than winning the primary? And I mean, his attacks on Biden at the moment, the last one I heard was he said that Biden is going to destroy the cryptocurrency industry. Which I'm pretty sure it's already destroyed itself. But once again, like DeSantis's natural constituency is the bros who are still hanging on to their cryptocurrency in the hope that it is going to take off again at some point in the future, and who spend a lot of time on social media trying to convince people that, crypto's hour is just around the corner. Like that's his constituency.
And it's not a majority, by the way.
No.
No. In case you're wondering.
It's not a majority, but these days it's actually probably a majority of content on X.
Probably. Okay. Can you think of like I don't want to interrupt you. So like
Yeah.
Are you
Okay.
Keep going. Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to mention what I found one of the most intriguing defense of DeSantis's campaign that I read, which was, I think, from Ross Douthat in the New York Times.
Yeah.
And he said, well, basically his campaign is stagnant. He said, because it was sitting at about 20% of the vote for months and months and months. And he made this interesting point. He said, well, like, that's better than everyone else. Maybe stagnant at this point is the best that you can expect. And basically the only strategy that anyone has at this point is to hope that something stops Trump from running.
Or he dies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think death is more likely than voluntarily stepping down at this point. And so he made the argument that, like, well, holding on to 20% of the Republican electorate is actually a pretty significant feat in this environment. And as we have already conceded, there's actually no other approach which would have been supported by polling, even if there are other approaches which would be more commensurable with human dignity. Well, yeah.
That's DeSantis.
Yeah.
Just while we're talking about DeSantis, it's I'm not so much going to weigh in what you're talking about. I just want to say one thing, because we've talked about the Florida thing on our show. The Florida education thing, the slavery thing on our show, which was in the Florida curriculum.
Yes.
The new curriculum, they've got one instruction to note that some slaves gained some skills which were useful in their personal lives or something like that. Whatever. I don't want to. I've talked a bit about that in other forums, the show and on the podcast last week. So I don't want to repeat myself. But there are two things I haven't said in any of these forums. I just wanted to get out there on this, because a lot of people talk about this, and I have said repeatedly that I think this story is largely a beat up. That that Trump is driving it as much as anyone. Like, Trump surrogates are the ones who are pushing this the hardest.
Well, yeah, Byron Donalds.
Totally. Not just him. There's like three of them. There's John James. They're all three black Republican Trump surrogates are driving this. Kamala Harris is trying to piggyback off that, but it's actually Trump Republicans.
So were they the ones who unearthed this? Or?
I don't know. I don't know. But whatever it is, wherever it came from, I don't think it's like the actual instruction is identical. It's almost identical to the instruction that was in the syllabus before they changed it. Like, so that was there before as well.
The key difference, though. The one before actually talked about slaves who were freed.
Yes.
Were able to use some of the trades that they've learned.
This
just said slaves in their personal lives were able. The vast majority of slaves were never freed.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, that's fair enough. Actually, I would say three things, because a lot of people have talked about the actual guy behind this is Dr. Allen, this black academic, conservative, who's gone into bat for it and spoken quite eloquently, whatever. I should say something a lot of people haven't noted is I read one article about it which said that actually him and this other guy were outvoted heavily on that exact provision. But they drove it through. They drove through even though they didn't have the numbers. So I think it was 2-11.
And also,
I think, on
then
the board.
they defended it with examples of people who were never enslaved. The defense that they put out, all of these people were, because the DeSantis campaign immediately picked up, look at all these historical examples. Like, only one of them had ever actually been enslaved.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I didn't know that, but the two things I wanted to emphasize. So first of all, the actual reason I think is a beat up is not just because of the Trump thing, but also because I think curriculums. I mean, this is why I want to bring this up in front of you as well, because you know more about curriculums than I do. I don't think curriculums are nearly as important as teachers. Like, curriculums are just it's just a line that's telling you that's saying, okay, you should cover this, and this, and then the teacher decides what to do with it. Right? And if a teacher wants to ignore it, they can. If the teacher wants to go hard in it, they can. The spin the teacher puts on it, they can decide. And I think that we focus on the gotcha of the line in the line on that we see on Twitter or whatever, but that doesn't reflect what's in the classroom. And and even what's in the classroom doesn't reflect what the students take out of it as well. Because I have very vivid memories not paying any attention to what my teacher said at school. Yeah. And so I imagine that is the case.
There is actually, to support this point, and I wish I could remember the name of this this book. I'll find it later. But there was a book about 10 or 15 years ago about creationism, the teaching of creationism. And it basically found what you were talking about, which is, so there were all of these jurisdictions in the United States where provisions were made for the teaching of intelligent design. But the conclusion of this book was whether students learned intelligent design or not basically came down to teachers, not the instructions from the school board, not what was in the curriculum. Yeah. I suppose another element of this is curriculums do influence what appears in textbooks. And in Florida, because Florida is big, there are a lot of textbook writers who would write in order to conform with the Florida curriculum so they can sell textbooks there. We've seen this before with Texas, which is a gigantic market, so big that textbook publishers are reluctant to include things that go against the Texas curriculum. But I do think that you make a good point about the importance of teachers in all of this. I still think it's an incredibly shitty thing to include in a curriculum.
Sure. I actually think there was another line which, when the story first broke, was also mentioned, which got forgot along the way. Yeah. But I actually thought the other line was worse, which was the one about the teaching about the violent acts that were done to black people and by black people. Yeah, to slaves and by slaves. You go, hang on, we're focusing on the violent acts by slaves and retaliate. Yes. Like, anyway,
reminds me of the extremely famous / notorious book review in The Economist, complaining about Baptiste's history of slavery, saying, all the bad people are white and all the good people are black in this book.
Or slaveholders and slaves. Yes.
Yeah.
But the main point I wanted to make, which I haven't made anywhere else, is while I think this story is largely a beat up, there is, in my view, a genuine scandal going on in Florida education that can be sheeted to Ron DeSantis.
Absolutely, yes.
That has been largely ignored.
Yes.
And even though it's happened while this scandal's been going on.
Yes, yeah.
And that is that they've made one of their official vendors PragerU.
Yes.
Which is a massive hack shop.
Yes.
It is.
It really is.
Super hack shop that is very partisan. And if they are providing videos and teaching materials.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm talking about here when I said the teachers matter, the materials are the teachers. Like the videos they play and stuff. These guys are as partisan as you can get.
Yes.
And that is really bad.
Yeah.
Really, really bad. That is propaganda that they are putting directly into Florida schools. Potentially all Florida schools. Yes. I think that's really bad. So I just want to just note that.
Yeah. I would say another thing about Florida education is it's worth noting that, about a year ago, there was all of this discourse about the Don't Say Gay law. And, remember the extent that they went to say this is just about age-appropriate sex education. We do not want young children below year 3, exposed to highly sexualized content. What's happened now? It's been extended to year 12. What a fucking surprise. It wasn't just about the protection of innocent children in the first place. So to everyone who earnestly went along with that shit, congratulations. You got absolutely played by people whose aim from the very beginning was making sure that children, up to and including 18-year-olds, never see anything that conflicts with their parents' beliefs. That is all that it was ever about.
I had no idea about that. Thank you for bringing it to the podcast. That's a good one.
Yes.
Do you have anything else to say about DeSantis before we move on?
No.
Okay. I want to talk about a few unrelated areas that all can be summed up with the word abortion. Mm-hmm. First of all, just in terms of polling, it's unsurprisingly, since Dobbs, abortion has become more popular.
Yes.
Making all abortion illegal is now down to 13% support, which is a 30-year low. Mm-hmm. Making abortion legal under any circumstances at all is up to 34%, which is an all-time high. Apart from last year, straight after Dobbs, when it was 36%. But still, it's very high. Okay. There is a really interesting development in this area. which is the blue states have developed these shield laws
Yep.
where they basically give doctors immunity if they sell abortion pills across state lines to red states where where abortion pills are illegal.
Yeah.
Now, if that doctor goes to the red state, they can be arrested.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they're not getting them. And
Yeah.
so, who wants to go to Alabama? So you've got a situation where New York, Massachusetts, Washington, Vermont, and Colorado all have these laws.
Yes.
And so far, this has only been for the last month or so. They've had this, and they've already sold 3,500 pills. So they're going at 40,000 pills a year immediately.
Yes.
And that's going to grow, obviously.
Yes.
California is about to pass their own law, and what the plan is to build a massive abortion pill factory in California and just have them just work through California.
Yep.
So rather than doctors risking, depriving themselves of the right to go to Alabama,
Yes.
you're going to have a factory in California that isn't going to go to Alabama, and it's perfectly safe to just pump out abortion pills and just they write the scripts and they send them to California, and then California will send them out to the red states. So this is going to be a serious issue in terms of federalism and where it goes from here, the escalation of this particular battle, that they are going to completely destroy the effectiveness of these red state laws against abortion pills.
Yes.
So, I don't know where that's going to go, but that's one to stay tuned on, I think. Do you have any thoughts about that? No? Okay. The Ohio ballot question is another thing which is really shaping up, which is Ohio used to have a fairly normal abortion law, and they've got they've just passed a more strict one because of Dobbs. There's a constitutional amendment, though, in Ohio to allow people to decide for themselves all reproductive health, contraception, fertility treatments, abortion, miscarriage treatment, all the rest, up to the viability of the fetus, which is about 22 weeks, whatever, 23 weeks, whatever. Even after viability, under this amendment, abortions will be performed if the patient's health or life is at risk. And we've discussed this many times.
Yes.
The word patient's health is a critical word.
Yes.
Because that includes mental health,
Yes.
which includes a very large number of the reasons why someone might have an abortion.
Absolutely, yes.
Anyway, it's polling really well. 58% approval to 32%.
Yes.
The Republican legislature, they're not going to take that. So they're trying to get another amendment through. This is in November, the abortion amendment. They're trying to get another amendment through in August before that, that changes the threshold for winning a constitutional amendment.
Oh, yes.
From 50% to 60%. Bear in mind the polling is 58% for the abortion amendment, right? They're not even pretending it's not about abortion. They're very explicit that this is about the abortion thing. They're just trying to work around direct democracy, essentially. Earlier this year, the Republican-controlled General Assembly restricted elections in August.
Yeah.
Except in the case of a certified fiscal emergency. Allow me to quote the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose. He said it wastes tens of millions of dollars in administrative costs, and it's bad news for the civic health of our state, and allows too few voters to make big decisions. He made an exception for this vote. Even though they passed the law, there were going to be no more August amendments apart from financial emergency. They also passed a law to crack down on non-existent voter fraud. So they severely limited the forms of IDs that could be used in voting.
Yes.
But the pro-life side in this amendment, the 50% to 60% amendment, sent out requests from 2017 for absentee ballots that had the old rules.
Yes.
And they were made illegal by the new laws. And so you'd think, well, all those ballots are invalid.
Yes.
No, Secretary LaRose decided to certify them anyway. Very generous. Very generous of him. There's a lot of interest in this administrative question about 50% or 60% propositions. A lot of money from out of state. Everyone cares about Ohio administrative law, it seems.
Oh, yeah.
But tough shit. It's polling 26% approval. So that's the happy ending to that one. Do you have anything to say about Ohio?
So 26% approval. So if they make it 75%,
but they need a vote to make it.
That's true.
Yeah,
But okay, so this is what they do.
Yeah,
they pass another vote to make the threshold of that 25%.
Oh, yeah, for that one vote.
Yes, yeah. I'm unleashing my inner Giuliani here.
God bless the bumblers.
Yeah.
Thank God that you've joined the ranks, Dave.
Surprise witnesses, each more surprising than the last.
That's right. And then finally, I know this is an area you want to talk about, the standoff about abortion in the military. In October 2022, the military published a memorandum directing the DoD to pay the travel and transportation costs for military members and dependents who travel to obtain elective abortions.
Yes.
Okay? They're not paying for the abortion.
Yep.
They're paying for the travel and for the food, for the accommodation, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to pay for the abortion.
No.
That's called the Hyde Amendment. It bans funding of abortion with taxpayer resources.
Yes.
Right. And since 1980, this has been the policy. Until 2022, the policy since 1980 was to not fund anything to do with abortions in the military. Okay, the OLC says this doesn't breach the Hyde Amendment. The Office of Legal Counsel. They say it doesn't breach the Hyde Amendment. The DoD may lawfully expend funds to pay for service members and their dependents to travel to obtain abortions that DoD cannot itself perform due to statutory restrictions, they say.
Yes.
Look, to be perfectly honest, I personally think it's a bit borderline. Like, I actually think, if you're funding everything except the actual abortion, the old money is fungible thing. Like, it's kind of funding the abortion. The money they're not spending on that, they're on all the other stuff they're spending on the abortion. I get your point, yes. Yeah, I think it's a bit dodge. Yeah. But what I also think is a bit dodge is what I'm about to talk about. Yeah. Which is, I should say, before I do that, I just say Tom Cotton. I want to quote him. This is what he has to say. You can take.
It's been a while since we've mentioned Tom Cotton.
He's been laying low. If they want to take that step, they have 30 days of annual leave. It shouldn't be taxpayer funds. Give them 3 weeks of paid uncharged leave and then also paying for travel and lodging and meals. Something that we don't even give our troops when they have a parent die, he says. Yeah, okay. But I should say it's actually, there's a lot of biased polls out there. There's no unbiased polls.
That's right.
But for the sake of the argument, I'll just say there's a Knights of Columbus sponsored poll. They're a pro-life organisation by Marist that says, which is also 58% of Americans supposedly oppose taxpayer funding of abortion, 38% support. I'm not sure I believe those numbers for the reasons I just said. Yeah. But anyway, okay. The Senate doesn't care at all about this. No. The House has tried to pass an amendment to get rid of this ruling. Yep. The Senate... they tried to put it in the defense appropriations bill. The Senate just ignored it and passed 86-11. They just didn't give a shit. Yes. Right? The last bastions of pragmatism in American politics exist in the Senate. Thank God. Not completely, but there's just a little bit. Yeah. There's a little bit. It's a faint pulse though. Anyway, the one guy who does care is Tommy Tuberville. Tommy. And this sucks. He's put a hold on the promotion of 270 senior military promotions until they... put a hold on the confirmation of 270 senior military promotions. Remember, in the Senate, one person can put a hold on anything. You go, well, how can they do that? They can just outvote it. Yeah, you can outvote it, but then you need to, if they put a hold generally, you need to have individual votes for every single thing. Yes. Instead of just having one, okay, we do all 270 at once. Yeah. And if you do one vote for each individual thing, there's also like 3 days, you got to wait. And so like basically you'll churn up the entire rest of the term on military promotions, which they can't do. Okay, so... by end of the year, we're talking about 650 senior military promotions on hold because of this amendment. There are only 852 generals and flag officers in the entire military. Yes. So 76% of the nation's senior officers will be unconfirmed by the end of the year.
Yeah, like the Marines don't have a leader at the moment.
Yeah, and if you and yes, you can have acting leaders, but they can't do all the things that a confirmed leader can do. Yeah. Okay, so it's a real massive pain in the ass. Okay, I want to let you go on this and Tommy Tuberville.
Yeah, the first thing to say about Tommy Tuberville is he is actually real, because I often get asked by Australians, is that just something that someone made up to sound like a stereotypically American name? No, he is real, and yes, it's also true that he made his name as a college football coach. I think we talked about this a couple of years ago. His most successful role in college football coaching was at Auburn. In 2004, his Auburn team actually went undefeated, but they did not get to play in the national championship game. That was back when these things were decided by a vote. The voters instead gave the nod to undefeated Oklahoma, who then got smoked in the national championship by undefeated USC. I believe that the score was 55-10. Now, Tuberville got very upset about this. He thought that Auburn would have played much better against USC. And because Auburn had not been defeated, there's still, at that point in college football, these kinds of unofficial national championships, which is just based on polls of journalists or whatever. But anyway, Tuberville actually took it upon himself to declare Auburn the national champions, but he didn't do it publicly. The way that he did it was he got all of these championship rings made up for his players that said Auburn National Champions 2004. The reason that we know about this is because so many of these ended up on eBay because the players knew that they were a joke and were embarrassed by the fact that they possessed them. So anyway, that was Tommy Tuberville's most successful period as a college football coach. He never had that kind of success again.
Are you saying we have another bumbler here?
I think bumbler is a bit too kind. But actually, one of the remarkable things about Tommy Tuberville was, as soon as he announced himself as a primary candidate, you knew he was going to win in Alabama because there's nobody as well known in Alabama as football coaches. The only person who could have beaten him would have been if Nick Saban, the coach of the University of Alabama, far more successful, had actually run. But this was actually one of the times when I could see that conservative criticisms of national media were justified because his campaign went like way under the radar. I remember hearing journalists from places like the Washington Post saying, oh, surely Roy Moore's going to win this because he's the only one with name recognition in it. Despite the fact that Roy Moore had been a sitting senator, he had nothing like the name recognition of Tuberville. So Tuberville was the most inevitable pick I had ever seen. But that obviously never meant that he was going to be a good senator.
Yes.
Okay, so the other thing that he's really notable for at the moment is constantly defending white nationalists. Even when people have kind of tried to suggest to him that the term white nationalist is synonymous with racist, he's like, oh, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, there are lots of words that people use, but,
I have the quote.
Yes,
I have the clip right here.
Please pull out the clip.
There we go.
You said a white nationalist is an American, but a white nationalist is someone who believes horrific things. Do you really think that's someone who should be serving in the military?
Well, that's just a name that has been given. I mean,
it's not. It's a real definition. There's real concerns about extremism.
So if you're going to do away with most white people in this country out of the military, we got huge problems.
It's not. Huge problems. It's not people who are white. It's white nationalists
that have a few probably different beliefs.
Right?
That have different beliefs. Now, if racism is one of those beliefs, I'm totally against it. I am totally against racism.
But
there's a lot of people that believe in different things.
Is racist, Senator?
Well, that's your opinion. That's your opinion. But if it's racism, I'm totally against it. I am totally against any type of race, or any type of racism. I don't care what it's in.
Okay.
And he has used the defense. He can't possibly be racist because he was a college football coach. And, of course, most of the players at Auburn were black. But if you've ever seen the way that college football coaches interact with college football players, let's just say that is not an a priori argument.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, he clearly doesn't know what a white nationalist is, we should say.
Yeah.
Clearly. I actually have my own favourite story about Tommy Tuberville.
Yes, what's that?
Yeah, it's about his dad. He's very proud of his dad.
Oh,
have you heard about this?
No, I don't know. I know nothing about Father Tuberville.
Okay, well, according to Tuberville, his father lied about his birthday to enlist at age 16 because he so wanted to serve for America.
Yeah, a lot of people have these.
And he went on to become a tank commander who earned 5 Bronze Stars, landed at Normandy Beach on D-Day, and drove a tank through Paris when American forces freed the city from Nazi control.
Awesome.
Few problems.
Yes.
He was born on 1925. His draft registration was 943. That's his 18th birthday. He was only a corporal, not a sergeant, and the sergeant's the minimum rank to be a tank commander. It's possible he could have filled in for a tank commander one day.
Right, yeah.
Unlikely he was regularly in that position.
Tank commander?
Probably didn't land in Normandy on D-Day because he only left America the day after D-Day. We know that because Tommy Tuberville said that himself on a different occasion.
Yeah. But he could have landed at Normandy at some other point afterwards.
Yeah, he may well have. In fact, you know what?
On
Let's say he did.
Yeah, like on the anniversary of D-Day.
Sure. Yeah, why not? It's also...
Maybe he's a D-Day reenactor.
Maybe. Well, there's more. There's more you need to explain.
Okay, yep.
It's unlikely that he drove a tank through Paris on the day it was liberated because the after-action reports for his tank battalion show they were 90 miles away from the city at the time.
Right.
He didn't earn 5 Bronze Stars. There are no after-action reports mentioning that he earned any of these awards, nor is it mentioned on his tombstone or his widow's obituary. By contrast, there is a photo that shows him earning 5 Bronze Service Stars.
Okay.
Now, Bronze Service Star is a somewhat less prestigious award.
Right.
That's that shows the soldier was physically present during a military campaign.
Oh, okay.
So he attended 5 military campaigns.
He attended this award.
But the good news is that what is true is that during World War II, the taxpayer never once funded any of his meals while he had an abortion. So that's the good news about Tommy Tuberville's dad. So yeah, that's my favourite story about Tommy Tuberville.
That's great.
Yeah. Anyway, do you have anything else about Tuberville?
No,
Okay.
I feel guilty that we've given him this much.
Okay, let's play quiz show. Quiz show stats nugget. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Morning Consult had a poll out this week.
Yes.
Dave, most popular senators in their home state. Who's number one? Most popular senator in their home state.
Oh, I've got no idea.
Barrasso, 70% approval in
Wyoming, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, do you want to take a guess about? I've got the top 10 here. Do you want to throw out any others that you think might be popular in their home state?
No, I'm not going to embarrass myself.
No, that's all right. That's fair enough.
Yep.
Okay. Brian Schatz from Hawaii is number 2, 65%.
Right.
Maisie Hirono, Hawaii, 63%.
Yep.
John Thune, South Dakota, 63%.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders, 63%. Mike Rounds, 62%, South Dakota. Angus King, Maine, 62%. Dan Sullivan, Alaska, 61%. Peter Welsh, Vermont, 61%. Cynthia Loomis, Wyoming, 60%. Moral of the story, be a senator in a red or a blue state.
Yes, especially a small one.
Yeah, if you want to be popular.
Yeah, the smaller the better. Basically, if you're in a state which has more senators than members of the House of Representatives, you're likely to be popular.
So on that note,
yes.
I just made that clear because I'm going to now ask you the least popular senators in their home state, which I've also got the top 10 here.
Yeah.
You can apply this rule. You can apply the opposite of this rule to answer almost all of these, apart from the most obvious one, which I'm sure you'll be able to guess.
What Manchin?
No, Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell, yes.
61% disapproval. And then Joe Manchin was number 2.
Yes,
well done.
yeah.
55% disapproval. Okay, from there on, do you want to take a guess at any others?
Mitch. So it's got to be Feinstein.
Feinstein's not there, but
Really?
Blue state, very blue state, California.
Yeah, sorry.
Remember the rule.
That's just my personal wish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure that 43% or 55% of California residents would even know Dianne Feinstein's still around. To be honest, she hasn't made
Everyone
much of a splash.
who knew who she was has died of old age.
Yes, anyway. Any other guesses? You don't have to guess. I just know you like this.
Lay it on.
Okay, let's go. Number 3, Susan Collins, Purple
Yes,
State,
yeah.
50%. Ron Johnson, Wisconsin, Purple State, 48%. This is disapproval.
Yes.
Lindsey Graham, South Carolina is not really, well, that's just Lindsey Graham,
that's
44%. Kirsten Sinema, Arizona, Purple and Kirsten Sinema,
Yes.
43% disapproval. John Fetterman, Pennsylvania, Purple State, 43%. Ted Cruz, we should have probably guessed him, 43%. Tammy Baldwin, Wisconsin, Purple State, 41%. Johnny Ernst, Iowa, kind of a Purple State, 41%. And Raphael Warnock, Georgia, Purple State, 41%. So there you go. If you want to be popular, if you want to be unpopular, represent a purple state or be Mitch McConnell.
Yes.
But
the interesting thing is, in Maine, both senators are on the list on different sides of it.
That's true. That is
but Angus King is technically independent, even though he caucuses as a Democrat. But I think, I think his independence is taken reasonably serious.
I think also, I think he's actually a good senator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
To be
think
fair,
we do have listeners in Maine, by the way. So Tyler, if you want to weigh in on that, please do.
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Dave. This is what we got. We got we got maybe 15 minutes.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
All right? Let me tell you the 2 stories that we have left over.
Okay. Yes.
And then you can pick.
Yeah.
We have we have the very important topic of Major League Cricket.
Yes, Major League Cricket.
Which Dr. Davis spent the last 3 weeks insisting that we cover.
Yeah.
And we have the Supreme Court, but we can cover the Supreme Court when you come back.
Right.
Would you like us to do that?
Yes, let's do
okay,
that.
let's go
Actually,
Major League
I don't think Major League Cricket is going to require 15 minutes. But,
okay, all right. But Supreme Court will. So let's go Major League Cricket.
That's yeah. Okay. So Major League Cricket has been surprisingly successful over the last few weeks. They're going to conclude their tournament on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I just want to give you a quick quiz.
Okay,
I'm going to name 6 Major League Cricket teams.
Yes.
You have to tell me which ones of these are real.
Okay.
And which ones I have made up.
Okay. All right. Okay. So do I know how many are real and how many have been made up?
3 are real and 3 are made up.
Okay, let's go. Right.
Okay. Seattle Orcas.
Okay.
Florida Flippers.
Okay.
Washington Freedom.
Okay.
Salt Lake Stumpers.
Okay.
Texas Super Kings.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And Oklahoma City Rage Hogs.
Rage Hogs. Wow. Okay. Okay. The Stumpers, I definitely think is real because there's no way any human being could come up with that.
Okay.
So the Stumpers, I'm definitely saying is real.
Yeah.
Flippers and Orcas, I would. It was the Seattle Orcas and the Florida Flippers.
Yeah.
I would go. I'd go Seattle Orcas is real, and I'm going Rage Hogs.
This is real.
The Rage Hogs against the machine.
Okay, you've got real. 1 out of 3.
Ah, damn it!
Yeah, the Seattle Orcas are real. They're winning.
Okay, you made up the Stumpers.
I made up the Stumpers and the Flippers and the Rage Hogs. Sorry for everyone who wanted to see the Oklahoma City Rage Hogs.
Oh, I'm so. That's real disappointing. That's real anticlimax, Dave.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were the real ones? So there's Seattle Orcas, and what were the rest?
The Seattle Orcas, the Texas Super Kings, and the Washington Freedom are real. There are a bunch of other teams as well. The single most ridiculous one, though, or most glorious, depending on your point of view, is the San Francisco Unicorns.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which I assume is some kind of allusion to unicorn tech companies.
Oh, I thought it was like an LGBT thing, like unicorns. Like, you know,
I think this is more of a Silicon Valley crowd than And who else? There are some other teams I can't remember. So the important thing, the reason why this has been successful is because there's been Indian Premier League involvement from the beginning. Like, I think most of these teams...
Super Kings.
Yes, yeah. I think most of these teams are either directly owned by Indian counterparts, or Indian counterparts are part of the big consortiums.
I was going to ask, are there Kings? Because that's always pissed me off in the IPL. There's Kings and Super Kings. Like the Super Kings should beat the Kings every time.
I don't think so. I think the Americans have avoided the double monarchy trap of the IPL.
Yeah.
But the IPL has actually played to sold out venues. Sorry, the Major League Cricket has played to sold out venues.
Well, what's the venue though? Is it like a cinema? Like what's the...
No. They're not huge, but they are actually, they're serious. And it stands in stark contrast to previous attempts to introduce cricket into the United States. So when I lived there, the only time I ever saw cricket on ESPN was this incredibly dodgy one-off 2020 event, which was put together by Sir Alan Stamford, who was a Texas billionaire who also had residence in the Bahamas and was knighted in the Bahamas. And the fact that he was Sir Alan Stamford, I think it was the Bahamas. It could have been Antigua. I can't quite remember, but it was one of the West Indian islands, and he was on a mission to bring cricket to the United States, but he was trying to bring publicity to it by having this this one-off T20 between England and a team that was essentially the West Indies, but they weren't allowed to use the term West Indies, so they were the Stamford Superstars.
Gotcha.
And the team that was promised, they were all promised $1 million each. Everyone in this team, which is pretty serious money, especially for West Indian cricket players who are chronically underpaid.
Why do they want it so bad? to hold this match?
Because this was to broadcast this on ESPN, right? So this was going to be their foothold into American television. I don't think many people watched it. I watched it with a great deal
broadcast good cricket
of interest.
This bullshit.
And they were, they took great care to explain all the rules and everything. But this game was a debacle from start to finish.
Kidding.
You could tell England didn't want to be there. Yeah. So England, I think, got all out for 99 after about 16 overs, and no one looked upset when they were all out. Part of the issue was ESPN keeps broadcasting these shots of Alan Stanford sitting with the English players' wives and girlfriends, and who are looking very uncomfortable to be around him, because this guy is just a complete scumbag on every level. So this was won by the Stanford superstars. None of those players ever saw any of the money that they were promised. Sir Alan Stanford is now in jail because he was a Texas billionaire in the 2000s. And, of course, his fortune was built entirely on fraud. Yeah. And the reason why he was a citizen of this Caribbean island was because he wanted an escape hatch. That is why. So that was the previous, biggest attempt to bring cricket to the United States. There'd been other one-day competitions and stuff, but they had failed. This is the first one that has succeeded. And that is, I think, largely because of Indian involvement at every level. There are a lot of people of either Indian birth or Indian background in the United States who follow cricket or are cricket literate. And that is where the real crowds are. They've realised this, and so this has actually been very successful. Whether this is going to lead to anything big, I'm kind of doubtful. But by the standards of attempts to introduce cricket into non-cricket markets, this has been really successul.
But it doesn't have to be big. If it's lacrosse big, that's still big compared to the rest of the world.
That's still big. Now, so of course there are very few American cricket players, so they've brought in players from all around the world, including Australia's own Adam Zampa.
Adam Zampa is in the
Adam Zampa's in Major League Cricket at
what team?
I can't remember.
No, that's all right. Okay.
I can't remember, but I saw a photo of him wearing a jersey with the number that he had chosen, which was 420. So
subtle.
Clearly taking it very seriously.
Is he just dominating? Do you know?
I've got to admit, I haven't been following.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, because you'd think that, if a legitimate international cricketer goes to the Mickey Mouse competition, you'd think. I mean, I know he's not a fast bowler or anything, but still.
Yeah. It's just. I mean, there are a lot of other. It was your typical collection of players who are a bit past their prime. So Quinton de Kock, I think, has had a blinder of a tournament.
Yeah, I would have thought he would.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, that's Major League Cricket.
Are they getting offered, the Stanford style wages, except for real? Or
no, they're not. No. This is the thing. It's actually been put together by business people who probably actually have some business
model.
nous.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. Sure.
So,
okay. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, but anyway, congratulations to Major League Cricket on your maiden season.
I'm definitely going to put a little teaser on Zampa in our description.
Yes, yeah. Adam Zampa. You didn't expect to hear about Adam Zampa from PEP.
Look,
I know that's not the reason that you listen to PEP, but
I got 20 pages of notes here, and there isn't the word Zampa once.
Yeah,
you them really. Okay, well, we're just about out of time there. I will just throw in one more thing which you might want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because I know you wanted to talk about this last week, and I didn't let you because we were out of time. But since we got four floating minutes here, do you want to say anything more about Bitegate? About Hunter Biden's dog, Commander, who's been biting the Secret Service.
I said everything I need to say.
Right.
I stand with Commander.
Okay, you're pro bite when it comes to the White House.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Just imagine this from the dog's point of view. Anyway, I said it all.
That's fine. Okay, well, I'll just say one thing. I'll just say one thing which I didn't say last week. Yeah. Which is the reason I brought it up as well. Which is, has it occurred to you why we know about this story? Well,
I know it first appeared in the New York Post. So
but where did this come from? Where these kinds of stories come from? Because I know where this story came from, and it's like I just think it's worth just taking a second just to reflect on it.
Yes. Yeah.
Where it came from is from Judicial Watch. Now, Judicial Watch, for those who don't know, is a guy called Tom Fitton, who distinguishes himself by having massive muscles under his business shirt. Like, I don't know, he's got some kind of insecurity thing. But anyway, he has this organization, Judicial Watch, which pose as a group that's concerned about justice issues, but in actual fact are just massive mega hacks.
Yes, yeah.
And it's very, very partisan, and all they do is just try and find scandals on the opposite side.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And basically they're what we call a FOIA factory, a freedom of information factory, where they just constantly make freedom of information applications on anything in the hope they can dig up some dirt.
Yes, yeah.
This came out of a FOIA application from Judicial Watch,
yes.
right? So what I want you to reflect on for a second is that there are people out there whose job it is to send out freedom of information applications on the president's dog on the off chance that they bit someone. That is their job. I don't like Tom Fitton much, but I feel sorry for him. I really do. And I feel sorry for his lackeys. I think they have the worst job in the world. And I just want I just wanted to say, stay strong, Tom. I don't approve of your career, but as a human being on a person-to-person level, I'm feeling the pain, mate. Hang in there, buddy. It'll get better. Do you have anything else to add before we finish?
No.
Okay.
You can't improve on perfection.
Okay. All right. Have a great holiday, mate. I am going to say...
It's not a holiday.
Sorry. Have a good, whatever you're doing. Work trip. Have a good work trip, which is not a holiday.
Yes.
I will be seeing Bill Wyman next Wednesday. He can't do Fridays.
You do not want to miss that.
You do not want to miss that. And then I'll be seeing Dave 9 days after that, the Friday after that.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dave.
My pleasure.
See you guys later. Keep peppy.